The first ship appeared in the sky above Haven 7 on a Tuesday morning. Tejo remembered this because he had been checking the water systems when the shadow fell across the ground. He looked up and saw something that blocked out the sun. It was massive, dark, and shaped like a creature with wings spread wide. Within an hour, 3 more ships arrived. They hung in the sky like giant birds waiting to dive. The colonists gathered in the central square, all 5,000 of them, looking up with fear in their eyes. They had been on this planet for 12 years. They had built homes, farms, and a future. Now something had found them. The Vorax came down at sunset. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with scales that shifted between green and black. Their eyes were like hot coals, glowing red in the fading light. They walked on 2 legs but moved like animals, their bodies low and ready to strike. Each one had claws as long as knives and teeth that curved backward like hooks. Tejo stood at the front of the crowd with the other colony leaders. His hands were shaking, but he kept them at his sides. He was 34 years old and had led this colony for 6 years. He had dealt with crop failures, equipment breakdowns, and conflicts between settlers. Nothing had prepared him for this. The largest Vorax stepped forward. It opened its mouth and made sounds that the translator device on Tejo's belt turned into words. "We are the Vorax. We are hunters. You are prey." That was all. No demands, no negotiations. Just a simple statement of fact. The attacks began that same night. The Vorax did not use weapons. They did not need them. They hunted with their bodies, using speed and strength and those terrible claws. They came in groups of 3 or 4, moving through the dark streets of the colony like shadows. The screams started at midnight and did not stop until dawn. Tejo lost 47 people that first night. He found their bodies in the morning, torn apart and left in the streets. The Vorax had not taken them for food. They had killed for sport. The colony had no military. They had security officers with stun weapons, tools meant to stop bar fights and calm angry farmers. These weapons did nothing to the Vorax. Their scales were too thick, their bodies too strong. 3 security officers died trying to protect a family. Their stun blasts hit the Vorax and bounced off like rain on stone. Tejo called an emergency meeting in the underground storage bunker. 200 people crowded into a space meant for 50. The air was thick with fear and the smell of sweat. Children cried in their parents' arms. Old men and women sat with blank faces, unable to understand what was happening. "We need to contact Earth," someone shouted. "They have to send help." The communication array was destroyed, Tejo said. His voice was calm, but his heart was racing. "They hit it first. They knew exactly what to target. Then we fight," another voice called out. "With what?" Tejo asked. "We have farming tools and kitchen knives. They have claws that can cut through metal. I watched one of them tear through a steel door last night like it was paper." The room fell silent. In that silence, Tejo heard the truth that no one wanted to say. They were going to die. All of them. It was just a matter of time. His sister Yuna pushed through the crowd. She was smaller than Tejo, with sharp eyes and a scar on her chin from a childhood accident. Before joining the colony, she had served 10 years in Earth's military. She had seen combat on 3 different worlds. She had killed and nearly been killed. When she spoke, people listened. "We cannot fight them directly," Yuna said. "Not yet. But we can survive. We know this land. We built every tunnel, every building, every road on this colony. They are strangers here. That is our advantage." "Some advantage," an old farmer muttered. "They can see in the dark. They can smell us from a mile away. They are faster and stronger than anything I have ever seen. Then we use what they cannot see," Yuna replied. "We go underground. We hide. We watch. We learn." Over the next 3 days, the surviving colonists moved into the mine tunnels beneath the colony. These tunnels stretched for miles, carved out during the early years when the settlers were searching for minerals. The Vorax followed them at first, hunting in the darkness. But the tunnels were narrow and confusing. The predators got lost. They got frustrated. They killed a few more colonists, but the numbers dropped. Tejo organized the survivors into groups. Each group had a leader, a route, and a hiding place. They moved at random times, never staying in one spot for more than a few hours. They ate cold food because fires made smoke. They spoke in whispers because sound traveled far underground. The Vorax grew angry. They were used to easy hunts, to prey that ran in straight lines and died quickly. These humans were different. They scattered like insects. They disappeared into holes and cracks. They refused to stand and fight, which the Vorax found confusing and insulting. One night, Tejo sat with Yuna in a small cave deep beneath the surface. A single lamp cast weak light on their faces. Around them, 50 colonists slept on hard stone floors. Children clutched stuffed animals. Adults held each other close. "How long can we live like this?" Tejo asked. "Not long," Yuna admitted. "We are running out of food, running out of clean water, running out of hope. Then what do we do?" Yuna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was cold and hard. "We stop running," she said. "We start watching. Every predator has a weakness. Every hunter can become the hunted. We just need to find their weakness and use it against them." Tejo looked at his sister. He saw something in her eyes that he had never seen before. It was not fear. It was not hope. It was something darker and more dangerous. It was hunger. "The Vorax think they know what humans are," Yuna continued. "They think we are soft, weak, easy to kill. They are wrong. They have no idea what we are capable of when we have nothing left to lose." Above them, the Vorax continued their hunt. They did not know that everything was about to change. They did not know that the prey was becoming something else entirely. The humans were done running. Now they would learn to bite back. 2 weeks passed in the darkness beneath Haven 7. The colonists learned to live like moles, moving through tunnels by memory and touch. They learned to sleep in shifts, to eat whatever they could find, to mourn their dead in silence. Every day brought new losses. Every night brought the sounds of the Vorax hunting above. Yuna did not sleep much anymore. She spent her nights crawling through narrow passages, watching the predators from hidden spots in the rock. She carried a small notebook and a pencil. In this notebook, she wrote everything she observed about the Vorax, their movements, their behaviors, their habits. The other survivors thought she was crazy. Some said grief had broken her mind. She had lost her husband Jinho on the 3rd night of the attacks. He had been protecting a group of children when 3 Vorax found them. He killed one with a mining pick before the others tore him apart. The children escaped because of his sacrifice, but Yuna was not crazy. She was focused. Every word in her notebook was a weapon waiting to be used. "They hunt in groups of 3 or 4, she told Tejo one morning. "Never alone, never more than 5. They stay together because they are pack animals. Alone, they feel weak." "How does that help us?" Tejo asked. He looked tired. Dark circles hung under his eyes, and his clothes hung loose on his thinning body. "It means we separate them," Yuna said. "We draw them apart, one by one." She showed him her notebook. Page after page of observations, sketches, and notes. She had mapped their patrol routes. She had timed their hunts. She had studied the way they communicated with clicks and growls. "They rely on heat vision," Yuna explained. "They see body warmth, not light. In the darkness, they track us by our temperature. That is why they find us so easily underground." "Then we are dead," Tejo said. "We cannot hide our body heat." "No," Yuna agreed. "But we can mask it. We can confuse it. We can use it against them." She had been working with Do Hyun, a young engineer who had designed most of the colony's mining equipment. He was quiet and serious, with clever hands and a mind that never stopped working. Together, they had been experimenting with materials from the mines. "The rock down here contains minerals that block heat signatures," Do Hyun said. He held up a piece of dark stone that sparkled in the lamplight. "If we crush it and mix it with water, it makes a paste. Cover yourself in this paste and you become invisible to their heat vision. Yuna demonstrated. She covered her arm in the gray paste and held it in front of a heat sensor from one of the colony's old machines. The sensor showed nothing. Her arm had disappeared. "This changes everything," Taeho whispered. Word spread through the tunnels. For the first time in weeks, the colonists felt something other than fear. They felt hope. Small, fragile, but real. Do-hyun set up production teams to make more of the paste. Women and children crushed rock while men mixed the powder with water from underground streams. Yuna continued her observations. She discovered that the Vorax had another weakness. They were arrogant. They had hunted hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. They had never lost. This made them careless. They do not check corners, Yuna noted. They do not look up. They assume prey will always run. They never expect an attack from behind. She also discovered something about their communication. The clicks and growls were not random. They were a language, and certain sounds meant certain things. A high-pitched click meant danger. A low growl meant food found. 3 quick clicks meant retreat. "If we can make those sounds," Yuna said, "we can confuse them. We can make them think danger is coming when it is not. We can make them retreat when they should attack." An old woman named Sujin had been a linguist before joining the colony. Her specialty was animal communication. She studied Yuna's notes and began practicing the sounds. Within days, she could make perfect copies of Vorax calls. The colonists were building an arsenal of weapons that the Vorax could not see or understand. Heat camouflage. Fake calls. Knowledge of patrol routes and hunting times. They were still outnumbered and outmatched, but they were no longer helpless. One night, Yuna gathered a small group of volunteers. There were 7 of them, including herself and Do-hyun. They covered themselves in the gray paste until they looked like statues carved from stone. They carried simple weapons, sharpened mining picks, lengths of chain, knives made from broken machinery. "We are not going to fight," Yuna told them. "Not tonight. Tonight we watch. We get close. We learn what it feels like to be near them without being seen. We prove to ourselves that we can do this." They climbed up through the tunnels and emerged into the ruins of the colony. The buildings were dark and broken. Bodies still lay in the streets, now just bones picked clean by scavenger birds. The smell of death hung in the air like fog. A Vorax patrol passed within 10 feet of where Yuna hid. 3 of them, moving slowly, their red eyes scanning for heat. They looked right at her. Their eyes passed over her like she was not there. The paste worked. Yuna felt her heart pounding so hard she thought it would burst from her chest. But she did not move. She did not breathe. She watched the predators walk away. And she smiled. When the group returned to the tunnels, they were different people. They had looked death in the face and survived. They had been invisible. They had been ghosts. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else. Confidence. "We can do this," Do-hyun said. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "We can actually do this." Yuna nodded. "We can do more than survive," she said. "We can hurt them. We can scare them. We can make them understand that hunting humans was the worst mistake they ever made." Over the following days, she trained more volunteers. She taught them how to move silently, how to apply the paste, how to control their breathing and their fear. She created teams of scouts who mapped every inch of the ruined colony. She identified weak points in the Vorax patrols, times when they were spread thin or distracted. Do-hyun worked on weapons, real weapons. He converted mining explosives into bombs. He built crossbows from salvaged metal. He created traps using wire, pressure plates, and sharpened stakes. "They think they are hunting us," Yuna told Taeho. "But every night, we get stronger. Every night, we learn more. Soon, we will be ready." "Ready for what?" Taeho asked. Yuna looked at her brother with eyes that had seen too much death, eyes that no longer held any mercy. "Ready to show them what humans really are," she said. "Ready to make them afraid of the dark." Above them, the Vorax continued their patrols, confident in their superiority. They had no idea that in the tunnels beneath their feet, A storm was gathering. They had no idea that the prey they hunted was preparing to become the predator. The humans had stopped running. They had stopped hiding. Now, they were watching, waiting, and planning. The counterattack was coming. The Vorax called him the Ghost. They did not know his real name was Do-hyun. They only knew that something was hunting their hunting parties. Something they could not see or catch. It started small. A patrol would enter a building, and one of them would not come out. They would find his body later. Throat cut. Eyes open in surprise. No sound. No warning. Just death in the darkness. The ghost struck twice in 1 week, then 3 times the next. Each kill was clean and quiet. Each kill was a message. You are not safe here anymore. Do-hyun had designed a new weapon for these missions. It was a blade attached to a spring mechanism, hidden under a sleeve. One quick motion, and the blade shot forward. One strike to the throat, where the Vorax scales were thinnest. One kill before the target could make a sound. He was not the only ghost now. Yuna had trained 15 others in the art of silent killing. They moved through the ruins like shadows, invisible to heat vision, silent as death. They never attacked large groups. They never took risks. They picked off stragglers and sentries, one at a time, night after night. The Vorax grew nervous. Their patrols became larger. They stopped splitting up. They jumped at sounds in the night. For the first time in their history as hunters, they knew what it felt like to be afraid. Yuna watched this change with satisfaction. Fear was the first weapon. Now it was time for the second weapon. Confusion. Sujin had perfected her imitation of Vorax calls. She could make the sound for danger so perfectly that even the predators could not tell it was fake. On a dark night with no moon, she hid near a major patrol route and waited. When a group of 5 Vorax passed, she made the danger call. High, sharp, urgent. The Vorax froze. They looked around, searching for the threat. Their red eyes glowed brighter as they scanned for heat signatures. They found nothing. Then Sujin made the call again, from a different direction. The Vorax scattered. 2 went left. 3 went right. They were confused, separated, vulnerable. That night, 2 more Vorax died. Quick, quiet, and alone. The pack leader of the Vorax was called Rasketh. He was old and scarred, with one eye clouded white from an ancient wound. He had led hunts on 40 worlds. He had killed thousands of creatures. He had never lost a hunt. Now he was losing this one. He gathered his hunters in the central square of the ruined colony. 73 Vorax remained from the original 100. 27 had died in the tunnels and the shadows. 27 killed by creatures that Rasketh had considered barely worth hunting. These humans are different, Rasketh growled. His voice was deep and rough. They do not run like other prey. They hide and strike and disappear. They are learning to hunt. They are still weak, another Vorax snarled. Soft bodies, no claws, no real weapons. We should burn their tunnels and smoke them out. We tried that, Rasketh reminded him. They have too many exits. Too many places to hide. The tunnels go deeper than we can follow. The Vorax had never faced this problem before. Their usual strategy was simple. Land on a planet. Hunt the dominant species. Take trophies, and leave. The hunt was supposed to be sport. Entertainment. A way to prove their superiority. It was not supposed to be difficult. These humans had changed the game. Below the surface, Yuna was planning something bigger than ghost attacks and confusion tactics. She gathered her leadership team in a large cavern that had become their war room. Maps covered the walls. Weapons lay on tables. The air smelled of the gray paste that had become their second skin. We have hurt them, Yuna said. We have scared them. But we have not beaten them. They still have numbers. They still have strength. If we want to win, we need to take away their confidence completely. She pointed to a map of the colony. Here is their ship, she said. Their main ship. The big one. It sits at the edge of the colony, guarded day and night. Inside that ship is their communication equipment, their weapons, their supplies, everything they need to continue this hunt. You want to attack their ship? Teho asked. He sounded worried. That is where they are strongest. That is why they will not expect it, Yuna replied. They think we are hiding, surviving, waiting for rescue. They do not think we are capable of attacking. They do not think we are predators. Do-hyun spread his work across a table. Blueprints, diagrams, calculations. He had been studying the Vorax ship for weeks, using telescopes and drone cameras that the colonists had salvaged. The ship uses a heat-based fuel system, he explained. Very efficient. Very powerful. Very dangerous. If we can get explosives into the fuel storage area, the whole ship goes up. One big explosion. No more ship. No more supplies. No more escape. How do we get inside? Someone asked. There is a waste disposal vent on the south side, Do-hyun said. It is small and disgusting, but a human can fit through it. The Vorax are too big. They never considered that someone might use it as an entrance. The plan was dangerous. The plan was probably suicide, but it was also their best chance. If they destroyed the ship, the Vorax would be trapped on Haven 7 with limited supplies and no way to call for help. The hunters would become prisoners. Yuna asked for volunteers. Every hand in the room went up. She chose 8 people for the mission. Do-hyun would lead them because he knew the explosives. 3 former soldiers would provide protection. 4 others would carry the bombs and set them in place. Yuna would stay behind to coordinate the distraction. We need to draw the guards away from the ship, she said. We need to make them think the real attack is somewhere else. We need to give our team time to get inside and plant the explosives. Since the distraction would be the biggest attack yet. 50 colonists, armed with crossbows, explosives, and the gray paste. They would strike at multiple points around the colony, making noise, causing chaos, killing any Vorax they could reach. It was meant to be loud and obvious, the opposite of everything they had done before. For 3 days, they prepared. They made more paste. They built more weapons. They practiced their roles until everyone knew exactly what to do. The tension in the tunnels was thick enough to cut. On the night before the attack, Teho found Yuna sitting alone in a small cave. She was holding a photograph of her husband Jinho. Her face was wet with tears. Are you sure about this? Teho asked. Yuna wiped her eyes and put the photograph away. No, she admitted. I am terrified. I think about all the things that could go wrong. I think about how many people might die tomorrow. I think about whether this is the right thing to do. Then why do it? Yuna looked at her brother with eyes full of grief and determination. Because Jinho died protecting children, she said. Because 47 people died on the first night. Because the Vorax will never stop hunting us unless we make them stop. Because I would rather die fighting than live like an animal in a hole. She stood up and touched her brother's face. And because humans do not surrender, she said. We adapt, we overcome, we fight back. It is who we are. It is what makes us dangerous. Teho hugged his sister. He knew she might not survive tomorrow. He knew he might not survive either. But he also knew she was right. The Vorax thought they were hunting animals. They were about to learn the truth. Humans were not prey. Humans were predators who had simply been waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment had arrived. The attack began at midnight. 50 colonists emerged from the tunnels at 10 different points around the colony. They were covered in gray paste, invisible to heat vision, armed with crossbows and explosives. They moved in perfect silence, spreading through the ruins like oil through water. Yuna gave the signal, a single flash of light from a mirror. Then the night exploded. Bombs went off in 3 buildings at once. Fire and smoke filled the air. Crossbow bolts flew through the darkness, finding Vorax guards with deadly accuracy. The colonists screamed war cries as they attacked, their voices echoing off the broken walls. The Vorax responded with confusion. They had expected the humans to stay hidden, to keep using ghost tactics. They had not expected a direct assault. Rasketh roared orders at his hunters, trying to organize a defense, but his voice was lost in the chaos. On the south side of the colony, Do-hyun and his team moved toward the ship. They had covered themselves in extra paste and wore dark clothes that blended with the night. They carried no lights. They communicated with hand signals learned from old military manuals. 8 people, moving through enemy territory, carrying enough explosives to destroy a starship. The waste disposal vent was exactly where Do-hyun had said it would be. It was disgusting. A tunnel of slime and rotting garbage. But it was unguarded. The Vorax had never considered that anyone would willingly crawl through such filth. Do-hyun went first. The tunnel was narrow and dark. The smell was so bad it made his eyes water. But he kept moving, pushing through the muck, pulling himself forward with hands that shook from fear and determination. Behind him came the others. Minji, a former farmer with steady hands. Sunho, a teenage boy who had lost his entire family. Jihye, a doctor who had decided she would rather plant bombs than treat wounds. All of them silent, all of them terrified, all of them committed. Outside, the battle raged. Yuna led a group of 20 colonists through the eastern part of the colony. They hit a Vorax patrol with a wave of crossbow bolts, killing 3 before the others could react. The surviving Vorax charged at them, claws extended, roaring with rage. The colonists retreated into a prepared killing zone. Ropes stretched across the street at ankle height. Pressure plates connected to hidden explosives. Sharpened stakes pointing upward from shallow pits. The first Vorax tripped on a rope and fell onto a stake. It pierced through his chest and he died screaming. The second Vorax stepped on a pressure plate and vanished in a ball of fire. The third stopped, suddenly uncertain, and a crossbow bolt caught him in the eye. Yuna felt no joy in the killing, only grim satisfaction. Every dead Vorax was revenge for Jinho. Every dead Vorax was one less predator hunting her people. In the ship, Do-hyun and his team emerged from the waste tunnel into a storage room. They were covered in filth, but alive. They had made it inside. The interior of the Vorax ship was strange and alien. The walls curved like the inside of a living creature. The lights were red and dim, designed for eyes that saw heat, not light. The air was thick and warm, like breathing inside a mouth. Do-hyun consulted a rough map he had drawn from his observations. The fuel storage was 3 levels down, at the heart of the ship. They had to move fast. The distraction would not last forever. They encountered their first guard at a junction between corridors. The Vorax was big, even for its kind, and it was looking right at them. For a terrible moment, Do-hyun thought they had been seen, but the gray paste held. The Vorax's red eyes swept over them without recognition. It saw no heat. It saw nothing. It turned and walked away. Do-hyun breathed again. His heart was beating so hard he thought it might stop, but he kept moving. The fuel storage was exactly where he expected. A large chamber filled with tanks of glowing liquid. The heat in this room was intense, almost unbearable. Sweat poured down Do-hyun's face, washing away some of the paste. He worked quickly, placing explosives around the largest tanks, connecting them with wire, setting the timers. 15 minutes. That was how long they had to get out before the whole ship became a fireball. The escape was harder than the entry. Alarms had started sounding throughout the ship. The Vorax knew something was wrong. Guards were running through the corridors, searching for intruders. Do-hyun and his team had to hide in shadows and side rooms, waiting for patrols to pass, watching the minutes tick away. They lost Sunho at the 3rd level. A Vorax guard came around a corner too fast and saw him. The boy died without a sound, cut down by claws before he could even raise his weapon. Do-hyun wanted to stop, to mourn, to scream, but there was no time. He grabbed Minji and Jihye and kept running. They reached the waste tunnel with 4 minutes left. They crawled through the filth faster than they had come in, propelled by terror and hope. Behind them, the timer counted down. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1 minute. They emerged from the vent and ran. They ran faster than they had ever run in their lives. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs screamed for rest. Then the sky turned white. The explosion was massive. A column of fire rose from the Vorax ship, reaching toward the stars. The sound was so loud it knocked people off their feet. The heat washed over the colony like a wave, burning eyebrows and melting plastic. When the light faded, the ship was gone. In its place was a crater of twisted metal and burning fuel. Nothing could have survived inside. The Vorax stopped fighting. Every single one of them turned to look at the destruction of their ship. They stood frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. For the first time in their existence, they looked small. They looked lost. Rasketh felt something he had never felt before. Real fear. The kind of fear that his prey had always felt when facing him. The kind of fear that made you want to run and never stop. Their ship was gone. Their supplies were gone. Their communication equipment was gone. They were trapped on this planet with creatures who had just proven they were willing to do anything to survive. Yuna stood in the middle of a ruined street, watching the fire burn. Her face was covered in ash and blood. Her hands were blistered from handling explosives. But she was smiling. Tejo found her there, staring at the flames. "We did it," he said. He sounded shocked, like he could not believe the words coming from his own mouth. "We actually did it." "We did," Yuna agreed. "But it is not over. They are still alive. They will still fight. They have nothing left to lose now." She turned to face the surviving colonists who were gathering around her. There were fewer than she had hoped. The battle had cost them 17 lives. 17 more names to add to the list of the dead, but the Vorax had lost more. And more importantly, they had lost their confidence. They had lost their escape. They had lost their belief that they were invincible. "Tonight we hurt them," Yuna called out. "Tonight we showed them that humans are not prey. But we are not finished. Tomorrow, we hunt. Tomorrow, we end this. Tomorrow, we teach the Vorax why they should never have come to our world." A cheer went up from the crowd. Tired, bloody, broken, but alive. Survivors who had become warriors. Prey that had learned to hunt. The fire from the Vorax ship continued to burn, lighting up the night like a second sun. It was a beacon, a warning, a promise. The humans were coming. And they would not stop until every last Vorax was dead. The last hunt began at dawn. Rasketh stood in the wreckage of what had been the Vorax command center. Around him, 41 hunters remained. 41 out of 100. More than half their number killed by creatures they had considered weak and worthless. He had lived for 200 years. He had hunted across the galaxy. He had killed thousands. Now he was trapped on a small planet, surrounded by enemies, watching everything he believed crumble to dust. The humans had stopped hiding. They emerged from their tunnels in the first light of morning, spreading across the colony in organized groups. They were still covered in that strange gray paste that blocked heat vision. They carried weapons made from mining equipment and salvaged metal. They moved with purpose and discipline. They did not look like prey anymore. They looked like predators. Rasketh gathered his remaining hunters. "We fight," he said. His voice was tired but steady. "We die with honor. We show these humans what Vorax are made of." But even as he spoke, he saw the doubt in his hunters' eyes. They had lost their ship. They had lost their supplies. They had lost their belief in their own invincibility. Fear had replaced arrogance. Uncertainty had replaced confidence. The humans attacked from all directions at once. Yuna led the main force through the center of the colony. 112 colonists, armed with everything from crossbows to explosive charges. They did not charge blindly. They used cover and teamwork, advancing carefully, supporting each other. Every Vorax they encountered faced multiple attackers from multiple angles. The predators fell one by one. A young Vorax named Scareth died in an alley, surrounded by 4 colonists with spears. He killed 2 of them before the others brought him down. An old hunter named Vorek died on a rooftop, picked off by crossbow bolts from 3 different directions. He never even saw his killers. Dohyun led a team that specialized in traps. They had spent weeks preparing the colony for this day. Every street had hidden dangers. Pits covered with thin cloth, tripwires connected to explosives, buildings rigged to collapse at the touch of a trigger. The Vorax learned quickly that nowhere was safe. The ground could swallow them. The walls could fall on them. The shadows could reach out and cut their throats. This was not a hunt anymore. This was an extermination. Rasketh found himself cornered in the ruins of the colony's old meeting hall. 5 humans surrounded him, their faces hard and cold. He recognized one of them. The female who led them, the one with the dead eyes and the hungry smile. Yuna stepped forward. "Your hunt is over," she said. Her voice was calm and certain. "Your hunters are dead or dying. Your ship is destroyed. You have nothing left." Rasketh bared his teeth. His claws were still sharp. His muscles were still strong. He had killed 1,000 creatures with these hands. "I am Rasketh," he growled. "I have hunted on 40 worlds. I have never been defeated. I will not be defeated by soft little creatures like you." Yuna did not flinch. "Your problem," she said, "is that you never understood what you were hunting. You thought we were prey. You thought we were weak. You were wrong." She raised her weapon, a sharpened mining pick that still had Vorax blood on its edge. "Humans are the most dangerous predators in the universe," she continued. "Not because we are strong. Not because we are fast. But because we adapt. We learn. We never stop fighting. You hunted us for sport. We hunt you for survival. And we will always win." Rasketh roared and charged. He was still fast, still deadly. His claws flashed through the air like lightning, but Yuna was ready. She dodged to the side and swung her pick in a short, hard arc. The point caught Rasketh in the throat, exactly where the scales were thinnest. Blood sprayed across the ruined floor. The great hunter fell to his knees. He looked up at the human female who had killed him. He saw no mercy in her eyes. No pity. Only cold, patient victory. "Impossible," he whispered. "You are just prey." "No," Yuna said. "We never were." Rasketh died on his knees, the last breath leaving his body in a long, slow sigh. The greatest hunter of the Vorax, killed by a species he had considered beneath notice. By sunset, it was over. The last Vorax died trying to escape into the wilderness beyond the colony. A team of colonists tracked him for 6 hours through forest and rock. They found him hiding in a cave. Shaking with fear, he begged for mercy in clicks and growls that Sujin translated without emotion. They gave him none. Teho stood in the center of the colony as the stars came out. Around him, the survivors gathered. They were exhausted, wounded, covered in blood and ash. But they were alive. 3,217 colonists had been on Haven 7 when the Vorax arrived. 4,833 now remained. They had lost 1,866 people to the hunt, but they had won. Dohyun had managed to salvage some communication equipment from the wreckage of the Vorax ship. It took him 3 days to get it working. When he finally made contact with Earth's nearest outpost, the response was immediate. Help was coming. Ships were being sent. The galaxy was learning what had happened on Haven 7, but the most important message was the one that the Vorax themselves had sent. In the final moments before their ship exploded, one of the Vorax had managed to broadcast a warning. It went out across the galaxy, transmitted to every Vorax ship, every Vorax world, every hunter who had ever lived. The message was simple: do not hunt humans. They are not prey. They adapt. They learn. They fight back. They will kill you. This warning spread from system to system, growing with each telling. Other species heard it and shared it. Within weeks, the entire galaxy knew what had happened on Haven 7. The entire galaxy knew what humans had done. A species of apex predators, undefeated for 10,000 years, had been wiped out by soft creatures from a small blue planet. The hunters had become the hunted. The prey had become the predator. 1 year later, Yuna stood at the memorial that had been built in the center of the rebuilt colony. It was a simple stone wall with names carved into it. 1,866 names. 1,866 lives lost. Jinho's name was near the top. She touched the carved letters with her fingertips. The grief was still there, deep and permanent. But it was mixed now with something else. Pride. Purpose. Peace. "We did it," she whispered. "We survived. We won." Tejo found her there, just as he had found her after the ship explosion. He stood beside her in silence, reading the names of friends and neighbors who had died so that others could live. "The Earth Council wants to hear from you," he said finally. "They want to know how we did it. How we beat them." Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, sad and tired, but real. "Tell them the truth," she said. "Tell them we did what humans have always done. We adapted. We fought. We refused to surrender. We showed the universe what happens when you push us too far." She turned away from the memorial and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, other species were learning about humans for the first time. Learning to respect them. Learning to fear them. "The Voraks thought they were hunting animals," Yuna said. "They learned too late that they were hunting the most dangerous species in existence. Not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we never, ever give up." She walked away from the memorial, toward the rebuilt homes and the new fields and the future that her people had earned with blood and sacrifice. Behind her, the stars shone bright and cold. And somewhere in the galaxy, the legend of Haven 7 was spreading. The legend of humans who had turned the tables on their hunters. The legend of prey who had become predators. The legend that would make the galaxy think twice before ever hunting humans again.